Of course, you'd like to believe it. But an unclean beach usually looks like this. Any discarded object is waste. Waste, produced by human activities, can be processed by burying it, incinerating it, or recycling it. Nevertheless, a large amount escapes and ends up in the environment. Most of the rubbish builds up in our rivers, our oceans, and on our beaches. It's called marine litter. Seafarers and people involved in water sports produce waste. Whether it's accidental or intentional, some of it ends up in the sea. These activities contribute to 10% of marine pollution. Will this picnic leave traces behind? Another 10% of what becomes marine litter is thrown away by people directly on the beach. Where does the other 80% come from? The United Nations Environment Program shows that 80% of the litter on our coasts and in the sea comes from inland. It's thrown away, transported by the wind. Rain and rivers, and ends up in the sea. There are all kinds of things. 25% of marine waste is glass, metal, cardboard, paper, or textiles. But the overall champion in all categories is undeniably plastic, which alone makes up 75% of the rubbish. Plastic is a scourge. Recently, people have been finding these small plastic cylinders left behind by the tide with the other rubbish.
Ces petites rondelles de plastique de taille et de formes différentes sont utilisées dans les stations d'épuration pour le traitement des eaux usées. Ce sont tout simplement des supports pour les bactéries qu'on met dans les bassins des stations d'épuration qui grignotent la matière organique en suspension. Les bactéries viennent se fixer sur ces petits trous crénelés et sont ainsi plus efficaces.
These filtration media are also used in fish farming, agro-industry, and paper making. What a contradiction that these small wheels are used to clean up water, but are sometimes released into the environment and themselves become pollution. It is impossible not to talk about another major source of plastic pollution, mermaids' tears. Behind this elegant name, we find plastic pellets used as raw material for making anything out of plastic. Billions of them are in the environment. Once it's in the sea, marine litter moves with the ocean currents, the wind, and the tides. A tiny amount gets washed up on our beaches. The majority of it sinks. It clumps together and forms huge carpets of waste. This is because of the gyres, eddy currents, which suck up rubbish from all the oceans of the world. Several agglomerations are then formed. The largest is called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch between California and Hawaii. It has been building up since the 1950s and now covers an area a third the size of Europe. Plastic breaks up in the water to form what can only be called plastic soup. It can even break down to such a small size that it's invisible to the naked eye, plastic plankton. In some areas, there is 6 times as much of it as there is plankton. At the end of the food chain, which humans are a part of course, plastic is spreading. And some stomachs pay the price. Each year, the ingestion of marine litter kills hundreds of thousands of animals. Some species can't tell the difference between rubbish and what they normally eat. The cause of death of this bird is going to be rather obvious when we look at its stomach. Jan von Franeker is a doctor of marine biology at the Amaris Institute. For the last few years, he has been doing research on fulmars. Examining the stomachs of these marine birds shows how widespread waste has become in the sea.
These birds seem to be flying around quite happily, but almost every one of these fulmars that you see flying around carries plastic in its stomach, carries chemicals in its tissues. And so the level of impact we have is scary.
This box full of plastic would certainly give you a tummy ache. That's what you'd have in your stomach if you were a fulmar. It's extremely worrying when you see what can be found in the stomachs of the largest birds, like here, in an albatross's stomach. What's striking is that these birds sometimes live a very long way from inhabited areas. But even so, this albatross had swallowed a toothbrush, a lighter, a float from a large fishing net, a golf ball, and even a tampon applicator. Other animals get trapped by marine litter. Marine litter also transports invasive species. These are usually algae or mollusks which attach themselves to floating rubbish. They then travel thousands of miles and proliferate a long way from where they belong. They can then sometimes disrupt local biodiversity. Another impact of aquatic waste also has to be considered. Over time, 7 out of 10 pieces of rubbish end up sinking. It sinks to the seabed and degrades the seafloor. It forms a sort of carpet, which prevents exchange between the water and sediments, suffocating the environment and causing life to disappear. Every morning, it's the same ritual. With all the rubbish washed up on the beaches, local authorities are forced to increase cleanup operations, particularly in summer. But beach cleaning, usually done mechanically, can't always tell the difference between marine litter and natural tidal deposits. Natural deposits include residues of animal and vegetable origin left behind by the tide. It is of precious ecological value since it feeds vegetation and animals and helps prevent coastal erosion. Cleanup operations therefore destroy a large part of the life on the foreshore. A clean beach is not always a healthy beach. Manual collection is the only way to leave the beach in its natural state. Cleanup operations also consume a large part of local authority budgets. Apart from the financial cost, there are major effects on tourism. It's difficult, indeed dangerous, to use a beach invaded by marine litter. Surfrider Foundation Europe is campaigning for legislation to change that. Previously, marine litter was just considered as being a visual nuisance. A step forward has been made since it's now part of the indicators used for marine water quality. But we still face a challenge. getting the European and international authorities to finally recognize it as a type of pollution in its own right. With its Ocean Initiatives program, the Foundation's volunteers are working to clean up the sea and raise people's awareness. The aim is to inform the public about this kind of pollution using action at the local level. To stop marine waste building up, we must attack the source of the problem. We need to reduce our waste production, reuse things to the full, and keep on recycling. Because let's not forget that 100% of waste is of human origin.